Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? A moment when you were certain of what you were seeing, and yet it didn't make sense. A glance that lasted only a second. The feeling that you weren't alone in the room. An image that disappeared the moment you turned around. Most people don't talk about it. They prefer to tell themselves they were mistaken. But there are accounts from people who went through it. They described exactly what they saw, what they heard, what they felt. And some of those details repeat. Now you will hear the stories of people who claim they encountered something they could not explain. They may sound unbelievable, but while listening you might remember your own moment, one you still haven't been able to explain. And you might ask yourself a question. Are you really sure you're traveling alone? One man stated that he was driving home shortly after midnight. He was alone in the car. During the drive, he didn't stop anywhere and didn't pick anyone up. After a few minutes, he looked into the rearview mirror. A young woman was sitting in the back seat. According to him, she had long dark hair falling over her shoulders. Her face was pale. She was sitting upright and looking directly in his direction. He didn't turn around immediately. For several seconds he watched the image in the mirror, trying to understand what he was seeing. He looked again. The woman was still there. Her face remained motionless. She didn't move. Her expression didn't change. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. His eyes kept shifting between the road and the reflection. He looked a third time. The figure remained in the same place. Only then did he turn his head and look back. The back seat was empty. He immediately looked back into the rearview mirror. The woman was gone. According to his testimony, the repetition was the most terrifying part. It wasn't a brief flash. He saw her several times. She was sitting there, watching him. And she disappeared only at the moment he looked directly. The rest of the drive continued without another incident. He never found out who it was. But since that night, as he stated, there has been one moment he fears the most. The moment his eyes lift to the rearview mirror. Because he knows that once before someone was sitting there. And if it happened once, no one can guarantee it won't happen again. And it wasn't only the road. The second story took place in an ordinary apartment. One man said that he was home alone in the evening. He was sitting in the living room and the television was playing quietly. From the kitchen he heard footsteps. A short, distinct step on the floor. He lowered the volume of the television and called out,
"Is someone there?"
From the kitchen a woman's voice answered.
Yes.
According to him, it was a clear, short word. It sounded completely normal without any distortion. The man remained seated. He was alone in the apartment. After a few seconds, he asked again,
"Who's there?"
The voice answered.
Me.
He stated that the voice sounded calm, without emotion. It didn't seem distant. It was coming from the kitchen. The man stood up and slowly walked into the kitchen. It was empty. He checked the entire apartment. No one was there. He returned to the living room, but he didn't sit down again. He stood there and listened. According to his testimony, the most disturbing part was that the voice answered twice. It reacted directly to his questions. He didn't hear anything else that evening. He never found out who the voice belonged to. But since that day, as he stated, he no longer asks questions out loud at home when he is alone, because he knows that someone might answer. And sometimes it doesn't happen in a car or in a kitchen. Sometimes you wake up, and someone is already standing next to your bed. One woman said she woke up shortly after 3 in the morning. She didn't know why. She opened her eyes without the feeling that anything had woken her. The room was dark, with only faint light from the street coming through the curtains. When she focused her gaze toward the foot of the bed, she saw a child. It was standing by her bed. According to her testimony, it was a small girl. She had long hair and was wearing a light-colored dress. She stood silently, her arms hanging at her sides. The woman lay there for several seconds, simply looking. She didn't move. The girl didn't move either. She didn't come closer. She didn't say anything. The woman stated that she thought she might still be dreaming. She closed her eyes. She opened them again. The girl was standing in the same place. This time she noticed her face, pale, expressionless, her eyes fixed directly on her. The woman slowly sat up.
Who are you?
She asked quietly. The girl didn't answer. According to her testimony, several seconds passed before she gathered the courage to reach her hand toward the lamp on the nightstand. She turned it on. The spot was empty. No one was standing by the bed. She checked the entire apartment. The doors were locked, the windows were closed. She returned to the bedroom. For several minutes she stood by the bed, looking at the place where someone had been standing just moments earlier. She stated that what she remembers most is the feeling that it was not a dream. The memory was too clear. She saw the outline of a body. She saw the face. Since that night, she has woken up several times around 3 in the morning. But no one has been standing there. And according to her, the waiting to see whether someone will be there again is worse than the moment when she saw her for the first time. And sometimes it doesn't happen inside. Sometimes you stand in the safety of your own home, and someone is standing outside, watching inside. One woman said she was sitting in her living room late in the evening. It was after 10 o'clock. The only light in the room came from a floor lamp, and the television screen lit the space in front of her. The living room had large French doors leading to a small terrace. At one moment, she lifted her eyes from her phone and looked toward the glass. A figure was standing outside the window. According to her testimony, it was a tall man. He stood a few steps from the glass. He didn't move. He was facing her. The light from the room reflected on the glass, so she could see his silhouette and the outline of his head and shoulders. For several seconds, she simply stared. The figure didn't move. It didn't come closer. It didn't leave. The woman stood up from the couch. She took a few steps toward the terrace door. The figure remained in place. She could see the outline of a face. The eyes were directed inside. She stopped about 2 meters from the glass.
Who's there?
She said out loud. The figure didn't respond. The woman took another step forward, and in that moment the terrace was empty. According to her words, it happened instantly. The figure disappeared in a blink. She immediately opened the terrace door. No one was outside. The terrace was small with nowhere to hide. The yard was lit by a street lamp. She walked around the house. She didn't see anyone. She returned inside and remained standing in front of the glass. The most frightening part was that the figure had stood there for several seconds without moving. It was watching. It didn't seem like a random passerby. Since that night, she closes the curtains earlier than before. Not because she's afraid of the dark, but because she knows what it feels like when someone is watching from outside, and you don't know where they came from. And sometimes it isn't a voice. Sometimes it isn't someone standing. Sometimes it moves. One woman said she was driving along a rural road late in the evening. It was after 10 o'clock. The road was straight and clear. In the distance, she saw something low to the ground near the roadside. At first, she thought it was an animal. As she got closer, the headlights illuminated the figure. According to her testimony, it was a person. The figure was moving on all fours. Its arms and legs were spread, and the movement wasn't smooth like normal crawling. It looked like quick, jerky shifts. The woman slowed down. The figure was several meters from the road. Its head was lowered toward the ground. When her car was almost beside it, the figure lifted its head. It appeared human. The body proportions and movement matched a person. It didn't seem injured or disoriented. The figure quickly moved toward the ditch and disappeared among the trees. The woman stopped several dozen meters farther down the road. She looked back. The roadside was empty. She saw no further movement. According to her testimony, she first tried to explain it as a person behaving unusually. Still, what disturbed her was how quickly and quietly it disappeared. What stayed with her most was that the movement wasn't normal walking or running. It was low to the ground. Since then, when she drives at night and her headlights illuminate the roadside, she looks more carefully. Because she knows that sometimes something moves there, and sometimes you're not sure whether what you just passed was really a person. 5 stories, 5 people, 5 moments they still can't explain.
Yes.
None of them were looking for mysteries. None of them expected anything to happen. They were sitting in a car. They were at home, looking out a window. They woke up in the middle of the night, and then it happened. A glance in the rearview mirror. A voice from an empty room. A figure by the bed. A silhouette behind the glass. Something moving in a way that didn't make sense. Maybe you think you would have noticed sooner. Maybe you think you would have reacted differently. But all of those people were certain they were alone until they realized they weren't. And now one question for you. When you turn off the light tonight and the room falls silent, will you really be sure you're alone? When you're driving at night and you look into the rearview mirror, will you look only once? Because sometimes one glance is enough, and sometimes one answer is enough, and what you see or hear may never leave your memory. If these real testimonies caught your interest, and you want to hear more stories from people who encountered something they couldn't explain, follow our channel Foggy Truth and subscribe. Because some moments find you when you least expect them. And maybe tonight when you look around the room, you'll catch something in the corner of your eye that wasn't there a moment ago. And this time you won't be sure whether you only glimpsed it or whether someone was really watching you.